Here is a very important question. What is data binding in Angular? First, the definition. Data binding is the way to communicate between your TypeScript code of your component and your HTML view. So in our Angular project, we have our TypeScript code written in app.component.ts file. All the business logic like receiving data from the APIs is written here, right? But after processing the data, we have to display this in the HTML file, which is also called view, right? And Angular provide us this app.component.html template file for displaying this data. Now the question is how to transfer data from TypeScript code to HTML template and then from template to TypeScript code. So for that reason we have data binding technique which does this job of passing data. Now there can be three ways to pass data. From component to HTML template, which is output data. For this we have two data binding techniques, string interpolation and property binding technique. We will discuss them in detail in separate questions. Then from view to component, which is input data. For this we have this event binding technique. And sometimes we need data to travel both sides, for which we have two-way data binding technique. The first three are one-way data binding techniques and the last one is two-way data binding technique. One thing here, HTML template and view are same thing. Also TypeScript code and component are same thing. See, originally component is mix of HTML template, CSS and TypeScript file. But for simplification, we mostly say that this app.component.ts file is component. So do not get confused by the name. So this is the four types of data binding technique which we will discuss in upcoming questions. If you have any question on this question, then please ask me in the comment section. What is string interpolation in Angular? Let's check out the theory first. This is the flow of data in case of string interpolation. Data will go from component to view. So the definition of string interpolation is a one-way binding technique that is used to transfer the data from a TypeScript code or component to an HTML template, or we can call it view. Now there are two important things about interpolation. First is string interpolation can work only with string type, not with numbers, not with booleans or not with any other type. And the second important thing is it is represented inside this double curly braces. Now let me show you the same thing in the code for the string interpolation. Suppose we have this title field in component file and the value is set to first interview. Now we have to transfer this value to view or HTML template file from this component file. So how we can do this? The answer is simple, with the help of string interpolation, like this. Put title inside the double curly braces inside the HTML view. See, now I will check the view in browser and it is present here. That means data is transferred from TypeScript or component code to HTML view. That is short answer of string interpolation data binding technique. Second data binding technique is property binding, which is like a big brother of string interpolation. Let's see that in upcoming question. If you have any queries about this question, so please ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer it. What is property binding in Angular? This is 90% similar to string interpolation. See, this is the flow of data in case of property binding. Data will flow from component to view same as string interpolation. The definition of property binding is like TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. Similarly, property binding is also a superset of interpolation. It can do whatever interpolation can do. In addition, it can set an element property to a non-string data value like boolean. So string interpolation can only play with strings, but property binding can play with any data type. So this is the difference between string interpolation and property binding also. Now the question is why we need string interpolation. When property binding can do all the things which interpolation can do, then what is the need of interpolation? The answer is because string interpolation syntax is very simple as comparison to property binding implementation. That is why it is included in Angular framework. Let me show you the code of property binding now. See, here is the string interpolation code. Now let me place the property binding code here. Here it is. Both are same things. I mean both are doing same things. But the first one seems simpler than the second line, right? That is why for string case, which is majority, or I can say 80% of the case is a string case only. So that's why we use string interpolation in case of string data binding. But sometimes we have to transfer the Boolean value from component to HTML view, which is not possible by interpolation but can be done by property binding. For example, let's put a text box here like this. Now this text box is disabled, can be true or false based on the value received from the component code. We cannot do interpolation code for this is disabled, but we can do this with the help of property binding. Now let me go to the component code and put this is disabled equal to true. Now the template error is gone. See, now we will check the browser and see the text box is disabled here, which is disabled with the help of the property binding. So this is the example of property binding in Angular. I hope you are now you understand when to use interpolation and when to use property binding. If you have any queries about this question, please ask me in the comment section. Here is the question. What is event binding in Angular? This is the flow of data in case of event binding. So when user will do some action like button click or mouse over in the HTML form, then you can catch that action in component file with the help of event binding. These actions are also called events. So the simplest definition is event binding is used to handle the events raised by the user actions like button click. Let me show you the code for event binding. See, here is the interpolation code and then the property binding code. Now we will see the syntax of event binding. See, this is the event binding code in HTML file. This means a button with text click interview will be present on the web page. And when we will click this button, then the click function will be called. This click function is nothing but a simple JavaScript function. And remember the syntax of this event binding. It is round brackets and inside that the event. Apart from click, there are many more mouse and other events. Let me show you. See, all these are events you can use. Now, right now this function does not exist. That's why this is showing error. Let me create this function in the component file. Now the error is gone. What this function will do is just log this line on the click of the button. This is just a JavaScript function, nothing much about it. Now let's go to browser and let's see the output. Click the button and then inspect to see the console. See, in the console the output is interview cracked. Now if you want to pass some data also from HTML template to component file, that also is possible with the help of event binding. Suppose this is some data which I will pass as parameters from HTML to component file. Let's go to the component file and inside the function give the parameter names with the data types and finally use them. For now just add 1 plus 2. Now again go to the browser, click the button again and then see in the console the output is interview cracked and 3. So that is event binding, handling the events created by users. Now if we want to handle the events and then display the data at the same time in the HTML view, for that we have another technique which we will see in next question. If you have any queries about this question, then ask me in the comment section and I will be very happy to answer as my name is Happy only. Here is a very important interview question in Angular. What is two-way data binding in Angular? If you know this binding, that means you know all the bindings. That's why interviewers ask this question as much as possible. By the end of this video, you will be able to explain two-way data binding to anyone. See, here is the flow. User will input data in some text box or input field in HTML template like this. The data will be passed to component file and then updated data will be passed back to this div or HTML view at the same time. So the definition is, two-way data binding in Angular will help users to exchange data from the view to component and then from component to view at the same time. This is the code format for it. First square brackets and then round brackets and then inside it ng model. Shortly I will give you the reason behind this syntax. Some people will call it banana inside the box also, but personally I don't like that. Anyway, it's up to you to remember it the way you like it. It may be square brackets and then round brackets, or you can say banana inside the box. Now let me show you the code of this two-way binding. This is the code of previous bindings: string interpolation, property binding and event binding. The code of two-way binding is like this. Input ng model inside the round brackets, then square brackets, then property name is name here and then type equal to test. The reason for this syntax is square brackets represent property binding and round bracket represent event binding. So in a way, this two-way binding is the combination of property binding and event binding. So this is the reason behind the syntax. Now right now we are seeing two errors here. One is not accepting this ng model, and second, this name property is not defined in component file. To resolve the first error, we have to include form modules in the app module.ts file. Like this, add form modules in the imports. This will automatically import the header for this. Now if you see the template file, the first error is gone. Now for the second error, let's define the name in the component file. Go to the component file and set the property name with the value interview. So it's like this. Now go back to the HTML file. Now no error is here. So here we are able to type any text inside this input control, but at the same time we have to display that in the view also, in the HTML also. For that we will place a div here and put the name property inside the string interpolation. So that's it from the two-way data binding, and now let's see the output in the browser. See, here I am writing something inside the input field and that is parallelly reflecting here in the div. So this is the two-way data binding technique. We are inputting something and parallelly it is reflecting in the output also. With this we covered all the types of data binding. If you have any queries about this question, then please post in the comment section.